Welcome to my channel. I am Tre'bion Deja and I am a 29-year-old from Detroit. I've been living in Dallas for the last 7 years. Moved here in 2018 and I just want to share my testimony. I've shared parts, but I've never ever shared like the full story. And I just think it's time to do that, and I'm just going to do my makeup so we can talk. So I graduated from college in May of 2017. And I went to school in Kentucky. Shout out to them thoroughbreds, the illustrious Kentucky State University. Yes, it's an HBCU. I had an internship that started like maybe 2 weeks after I graduated. The enemy was on me already then. Like, I already had that lined up, the internship. But for some reason, after I graduated, I kind of got depressed because this was the first time in my life where I was going to be out of school. And as somebody that grew up like type A, that did very well in school and that like I really succeeded in school, or just like that's been my life up until this point. It's just you go to school, people talk about you graduate, but then they never say what you do after you graduate. And I'm kind of somebody that needs structure in my life. So I got kind of scared, like, oh my goodness, I'm a failure, I don't have nothing. And my roommate, who's also my best friend, had to talk me off the ledge, basically like, girl, you are fine, don't you have your internship coming up, you will be okay. Looking back now, I know that was nothing but the enemy trying to like psych me out. Do my internship is only 3 months, and unfortunately I was not able to secure a job. Like, I was trying so hard, and I didn't want to go back to Detroit. I didn't want to go to Detroit. I didn't want to stay in Kentucky. When I was in, like, you know, in my last year, my dad kept telling me how like, oh, well, you know, if you want to, you can just come down here, which is Virginia. He was living in Virginia at the time. So you can just come down here, you know, save up, and then figure out your next move. So by the time my internship ended, I think I had maybe a week after it ended, and then I had to figure out what was next, and I really did not know what was next. My friend at the time, I believe she went to Tennessee because she got engaged. So she went to Tennessee to be with her man. So she had that going for herself, and I was just feeling like, okay, so what's next for Tre'bion? I did not know. I ended up sleeping on one of my friend's couch for like maybe 2 days. I didn't even make it a full week, but like 2 days, and I was like, oh yeah, this ain't for me. So I upped and drove to Virginia. I didn't tell anybody I was going down there. Like, I didn't call my dad and let him know like I was going on. I was like, oh, it's gonna be a surprise. It's going to be a surprise. I'm gonna get down there. They're gonna welcome me with, you know, warm arms. Baby, I finally make it out there, and it was not what I was expecting at all. My dad and my stepmom at the time were going through their own little problem, but I really walked into a bunch of drama, and I was like, oh, this is not what I was expecting at all. Imagine you're a college student, you couldn't find a job after your internship, you have to move back in with your parents, you still don't have a job when you move down there with them, and then you come into some drama. Yeah, that's where my life was at. I moved down there in like the beginning of August, but my dad kept pressuring me like, you need to find you a job, you need to find you a job. And he was going through his own stuff, so it was just not a good time for either one of us. But that's his story to tell. But yeah, just on my end, I was just like, why is this man being like this? Not only did he tell me I had to find a job, but he told me I had to move out of his house as well. Oh, I really wasn't expecting all of this. Like, I knew I was gonna have to find a job eventually, but like the way he was just hounding for me to find a job, it just became a bit too much. Should we do a cut crease? I haven't done a cut crease in forever. Is that right? I wasn't expecting to have to, you know, just do so much so fast, and I did all that. If you don't want me here, I won't be here. I ended up renting a room in somebody's house. Yes, a stranger's house I found on Craigslist. Renting a room in their house because, again, I'm a broke college student. I was in Northern Virginia, and if you are familiar with Northern Virginia at all, then you know it's expensive, and I didn't have it. So renting a room was the best thing for me to do at that time in my life. I ended up moving from where my dad was at, and moving in with these strangers, and I found me a job as an administrative assistant for a university. I was not familiar with Virginia, so I wasn't sure how far places was from each other. Why did I have an hour and a half commute every single day? I'm driving 3 hours every day. I'm probably making like $18 an hour. I was doing the best I could with what I had. I remember just being so depressed, basically. I was very sad. I'm not gonna say depressed. It got to a point where I was like, Lord, there's no way that this is just all there is to life. There is no way. I got this long commute every single day. I don't really like my job. I'm not around anybody because my family lives they were like 2 hours away at this point. It was pretty far. So I'm just like by myself, just working a job that feels like it's dead. I started in August of 2017. By December, I was like, yeah, I can see this ain't gonna last too much longer. And this ain't gonna work for me. My soul was unhappy. I was sitting at work one day, very much a mundane job, and I just started crying. I just bust out crying at my desk. I'm so glad there was nobody there, but there was a black lady, and she came out and she seen me crying. She was like, oh my goodness, what is going on? And thank God she was a believer. So she was able to speak life into me, and she kept asking is there something at the job? And I was telling her there's nothing at the job. Nobody's done anything to me. They actually were very nice people. My soul was unhappy. I think back then I couldn't really articulate it, but now looking back, it's like my soul was just unmoved, unmotivated, just not feeling very fulfilled. That's the word. I was not feeling fulfilled at all. After that breakdown, I was like, oh, something gotta shake. Church that I was going to, let me kind of go back. Growing up, I always knew about the Lord. My parents, we would go to church sometimes here and there, but it was never they never taught us to have a relationship with God. It was just we go to church. I have an uncle that's a pastor. We would go to his church. My grandma, my dad's mom, she was very much, I had a praying grandmother. That's very much what she was given. She was my praying grandmother. Growing up, I really didn't have a heavy relationship with God. I didn't know nothing about that. When I was in college, there was a local church, Heavenly Outpour. People from the church would come onto campus and have Bible study. This was my junior year. I started going to some of the Bible studies. Literally my first time there, they had something they called the hot seat. The people that's over it, God would give them a word to speak to somebody, that's just going to the Bible studies. This lady, her name was Vicky. May she also rest in peace. She pointed me out and she was like, God hears you. He hears your cries. And I'm about to start crying now, just thinking about it. Because that was just something that was what really made me realize, because I had never talked to this lady a day in my life. But she had, spoke directly to my heart. The Lord had spoke through her to speak directly to me. That was just a game changer for me. I was like, oh, okay, well maybe this God thing really is deeper than what I initially thought. I really was under the impression that God was a dictator. You need to follow his rules, and if you're not following his rules, you're in sin. I started going to the Bible studies more frequently. Looking back, God is very intentional. He wanted me. I needed to meet him in college for everything that I was going to go through after college. So going back to, I had my note down at work. I said something had to change, and my church was doing Daniel's fast. I don't think I had ever done a fast before I went to that point. I'm going to go ahead and join this with them. If you want to hear from the Lord, that's what you got to do. Honestly, I need to go on one now. Thing was, I was just like, Lord, what is this? What's next for me? Don't know. I need some type of guidance. I was going to a church out in Virginia. I remember the pastor saying something you waiting on God to move and he's waiting on you to take the first step. I never really wanted to go to Virginia. My top 3 places were Atlanta, Phoenix, or Dallas, right? I went to Atlanta while I was in school, for spring break. I was like, not really feeling it. Anytime I would bring up Phoenix, somebody would just talk about how hot it is. And I was like, I'm already a hot girl. I can't afford to be hot anymore. Okay, Dallas. I've never been to Dallas before, but something was pulling me towards Dallas. So during this fast, I was at church, and like I said, the pastor said something you're waiting on God, and he's waiting on you to take the first move. When I paid attention to what he had on a Dallas Cowboys, shirt or something. Okay, all right, Lord, are you telling me to go to Dallas? Texas? If you are, I'm gonna need some more signs, okay? When I asked for a sign, he started showing me signs like crazy. Like I said, I had an 1.5-hour commute, right? Why I started seeing Texas license plates in Virginia. I started seeing Texas license plates so freaking much. And I was like, all right, Lord, I hear you. But then I started bringing it up to like my family and my friends. Like, yeah, I think I'm thinking of moving to Texas. I had nothing but like good responses. I just had like confirmation after confirmation, like, yeah, you need to go. So once I really got confirmation, y'all, oh no, hold on, my battery's about to die. I got confirmation from God. I put in my 2 weeks at my job. I had to go back to Kentucky because when I graduated and moved from Kentucky to Virginia, I just put all my stuff in my apartment in a storage unit because, you know, I wasn't sure exactly where I was gonna be at. I went to Kentucky for about a week, honestly. Yeah, I stayed on campus with my friends, stayed there for about a week and it felt like I was back in college. I actually had so much fun during that time frame. I wanted to be bad so bad. You know, some of my old flames was there. I was like, no. Wait, let me make sure I ain't lying. No, I didn't do anything when I was down there. Thought about it though. After being in Kentucky for a week, I rented out a Penske truck, put Betty on the back of it. My friend Passion and I drove down to Texas. I didn't have a job, didn't have anywhere to stay. I had maybe $1,500 in my pocket. That's where faith comes in. I got a hotel room for a weekend, and on those days, we found somewhere for me to stay. It was renting a room in somebody's house, which I had done that previously, so I was fine with that. I'm getting up out of Virginia where I'm so unhappy at, and I'm starting this new thing, which I'm very excited about. So I was really down for whatever. I really didn't have no idea of what I thought moving to Dallas was gonna be. I was just so excited to be doing something new, and I knew for sure that I had confirmation from God to move here, so I was just like on go mode. Me renting a room in somebody's house really didn't faze me. I didn't feel any shame towards doing that. I was like, girl, I already did this. It is what it is. I got my car. I got my mom. I'm moving to Texas. And shout out to those people that I stayed with. They were so freaking kind because I really was struggling. Oh my goodness, like I said, I didn't have a job, but they were so graceful. I was late on my rents quite a few times and they didn't kick me out where they could have. I still feel bad because I had this big old headboard, and when I moved out I didn't have anybody to help me move it, so I left it there. I stayed with them for a 1.5 years before I finally got my own place. The first week I was here, I had so much fun in Dallas. It was in March, so St. Patty's Day parade. I went to that. I didn't make it to the parade, but we just went out and I was like, oh, this is how y'all doing it out here? Love this. Yeah, that first week I was just like really excited, like, okay, this was the best move. I'm so happy to be here. And then my friend went home, and that's when the enemy was like, what you gonna do now? You still think this is a good move? Look at you can't get no job, money running low. What you finna do? Is your God now? Call mama crying, like, girl, I don't know if I should have did this. She's like, well, if you want to come home, you can. Or she asked, she's like, do you want to come home? I said, no, not really. And she was like, well, my mama is a tough love type of person. Well, you didn't expect it was gonna be easy, did you? I was like, I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't this. I don't know what the heck. One thing to be in the middle of a storm or in the middle of going through whatever you're going through. But when you're in the middle of it, I don't want to hear none of this, none of that. This sucks. I need to go back home. I don't think I heard God correctly. I don't know. I don't know, girl. I got a job in April, but the job I was working at, they only did orientations once a month. So I actually couldn't start working until May. I had to wait. So I ended up getting another job in the meantime, in between time. The job was being a hostess at a Fearing's restaurant at the Ritz in Uptown. That job, just know that everything that glitters isn't gold, but I had a job. I was there for like a 1.5 years, and then I got to a point where I was like, okay, there's no growth here for me. My lashes on, and then I'm gonna come back and finish telling y'all. I have lashes on. I was at that hostess job for about a 1.5 years. I ended up quitting because I was like, Lord, I was trying to find other jobs, but again, that was another dead-end job, and I was like, I don't want to be a server. So like, where else can I go inside of here? And Daniel didn't want to even stay there at that job. I was like, I'm kind of cool on all y'all people. So that's probably like the most toxic job I've ever had in my life. I worked at Amazon. I was doing stuff I normally don't ever do. I had a no call, no show. I had gotten written up for sitting inside. When I tell you this, one manager had it out for me for whatever reason. And if you're wondering, yes, I was pretty much a minority working there. So was it a race thing? I don't know, but looking back, it might have been. I quit that job. I didn't have anything lined up, but God, that's when I started my journey in insurance. This is what it's like when you have good management. I was working at State Farm. It's pretty entry level because it was like the call center position. I've been in there, kind of just exposed me to different things within insurance that I didn't know about. Looking back over my life, even now, I'm really in a season of trusting God and trusting that He is going to come through. And I think that He wanted me to share this not only as a testimony for other people, but also as just a reminder of how good He's been in my life, because the things that He's done in my life don't make sense to me, wouldn't make sense to you, the average person, but God. That's all you can say. The season that I'm in, I am learning to have to depend on Him more than I've ever had to depend on Him before. It's very humbling. He has me telling a story not only as a testimony to others, but just as a reminder for myself so that I can kind of chill out and just know that He's going to come through. I think it's just scary that when you feel like you have more to lose, you kind of want to put your hand in stuff more and like quote unquote help God out. There's no helping God. We all know that, but like that's what you feel like we want to try to do as much as you can do. And it's like, girl, I don't need your help. And I'm seeing that, like, because the things that I try to do and make shake, He be like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and block that. Yeah, you're not going to do that. That's not going to fall through for you like you thought it would. But that was cute of you to try. It's a very humbling experience. Cried probably more this year than I ever have. I'm still currently going through what I'm going through, so I don't want to talk about it yet, and I can't talk about it yet because I'm still in the middle of the storm. Just a few months ago, I was super depressed, and I felt like God had forsaken me. My mind, I was not even fighting back. I was just letting the enemy run rampant in my mind. He was telling me all these things like, God ain't gonna come through for you. There's no hope for you. Again, like the same things He had done previously when I first moved here to Dallas. But this time I was believing Him. I sure was. I was like, well, maybe He's right, because I'm not seeing the hand of God in my life. This looks crazy now, guys. Hold on. It's crazy. It does look really crazy. But I promise. Editing Tre'bion popping in. That was actually a word right there. Like, my life was looking crazy and I didn't believe that God was going to come through. But of course He did come through for me. You have to protect your mind. I had never realized how serious it was to have a sound mind until I didn't have mine. It was to the point where I would just wake up and be crying. I would stop going to church. I couldn't even go to church because I just felt like I didn't want to praise the Lord. I don't see you moving in my life. What I was like, I was so upset. I can say that. Like, I was so frustrated with God. Like, you did this and you got me out here looking so silly. I'm putting my trust in you and you were just showing me that was probably a dumb decision. Again, this is nothing but the enemy. I let the enemy get in my head. But I was crying so much. I'm naturally an optimistic person. I was so pessimistic. I was isolating. Not really talking to anybody. Not really wanting to talk to anybody because I didn't have anything good to say. I didn't have anything good to say. And honestly, yeah. I remember I tried to get myself out of it. I really wanted to go to the Jasmine Sullivan Maxwell concert. They had came in town, but I ended up getting tickets and then I left early. That's how down bad I was. Like, I was trying to fight my way through. And I think it hit me so hard because this was the first time that I actually let myself feel my feelings. Before I would like analyze them or just be like, oh no, I'm fine, you know, I'm fine. I was not okay. And I had to let myself know it's okay to not be okay. You can't always be strong. You are human. Your feelings are very much valid. And there's going to become a point in time where you have to feel the things that you're going through, you know? You can't always talk yourself out your feelings. You have to feel those things. And because this was the first time I ever let myself really feel my feelings probably ever in my life, baby, I was down for a good month, almost a month and a half. But then something happened where I was just like, oh no, the enemy is not trying to attack my family, and I have to fight back. I really have to fight back. Because it's one thing to come after me, but when you start coming after my family, oh baby, you got me messed up. You really got me messed up. So that's what got me out of my funk. Like, we have to fight back. We're gonna have to fight back. Do not let the enemy trick you out your spot. Like I was saying, like, this was the same tricks he had tried to use when I first moved down to Dallas. But this time it's just that I was believing him. You cannot believe anything that the enemy is saying. If it's not something positive, then just know that it didn't come from the Lord. The Lord speaks life into you. Talking about who you are as a person, your character, and who God is going to be positive. It's going to be speaking life into you. God is a powerful God. He is almighty. He is all-knowing. So nothing that you are going through is a surprise to him. Yes, you can be frustrated with the Lord. He wants to have a relationship with you. It's not a dictatorship. If you are frustrated with the Lord, tell him, God, I am frustrated with you. Father, I do not understand what you're doing, but I understand that your ways are better than my ways, for I may not understand now. It'll make sense sooner or later. Not 100%, but I am a lot better than I was a few months ago. I do know that. Right now, I have like 2 songs that are my songs. One that I be singing with all my mighty conviction because the enemy had me messed up is Waging War by CeCe Winans. If you never heard their song, that's like really a battle song where it says anoint my head, anoint my feet. Anoint my head, anoint my feet, Senor. Dang, well, I don't know the word. Waging war. I'm tired of principalities messing with me. Waging war. I'm tired of the devil stealing from me. My weapon of power, he lives with it. That's a song. Also, my worship. Ooh, I went to church. Every time I hear that song, whether I'm in church or not, baby, that song be having me crying. Cause I have breath. Dang, how the words go? Hold on, we're gonna have to listen to it. So as long as I'm alive, I'm gonna be worshiping you, basically. Receive my worship. Just as long as I am breathing, I will always worship you. And I will not be silent. I will always worship you. As long as I am breathing, I will not be. That's the part, because I'm like, just remembering that time where I just could not worship him because I was so sad and I was just letting the enemy win and tell me all these things about my God. And his track record is too good. God's track record is too good to be believing something that the enemy says. And that's why you have to have a relationship with him for yourself. Hopefully you got a word out of this, got some hope restored from me sharing my testimony. I've never shared this testimony, my full testimony, ever. May God be with you and be with me and bless you and hold you and just carry you on to your next place and give you the strength and restoration that you may need. I don't know what you're going through. God knows what you're going through. And just know that he loves you because he loves me enough to make me put this out there just so you can get a word. Okay? Bye.